All right, everybody. Today we're doing the asteroid class, the advanced version of the asteroid class, which is always amazing. Asteroids are amazing. This class is being taught on July the 27th, 2024. And I'm Lori Lothian of Lunatic Astrology. We're going to let people into our Zoom room now, and then we'll get started and teach away. So we got a few people in the waiting room. So let me open it up. And we'll get going. Give me a minute. I'm going to grab one thing. Okay, and I will pause this recording while people come on in. And of course, hopefully I won't forget to return the recording to its on status. Hey guys, just letting people into the room. I paused the recording while people are showing up for our class today. And a reminder that there will be a copy of this sent to you guys to keep forever and ever. Amen. As well as, all of that. Let's see who else is showing up. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hi, Amanda and Glenna and Meredith and Maria, Monique, Sabrina, Satcha, Season, our budding astrologer. She's a little genius. I do swear, because she's very curious. Sanette, hi again. So what we're doing here is looking at asteroids from the angle of transits and action in the sky versus natal disposition mostly. And we'll get started once I see that everyone's here. If you want to connect to people in the chat, you can let everyone know where you're coming from today. I'm coming, of course, from my Vancouver nest in Canada, which is my happy place right now. Montreal, yay! Miami, Dorset. Oh, I've never been there, but I've been all over England. I love England and Scotland. I've never been to Ireland yet, which is one of my must-dos. Can't wait to try the Emerald Isle. New York City, Cassidy. Yes, I used to live, Cassidy, in Battery Park City and also Roosevelt Island in Manhattan, in the dark ages of the late 80s. That's how old I am. So, but it's a beautiful city full of a beautiful energy. I love Manhattan. You know, I lived in Montreal, and Montrealers should know that Manhattan and Montreal have the same vibe. And one of the vibes is people are so helpful. If you're lost with a map in Montreal or New York City, the locals will help you out. Palmetto, Georgia. Yay. And Massachusetts. Yes, I've been all over Massachusetts, mostly the Boston area. Hey, Jessica. Cassidy loves it there too. Yay. Well, the Bay Area is also beautiful. I have past lives in that area of reality. Kimberly doesn't have sound. I think everyone can hear me because people are responding to my voice, Kimberly. Just check your microphone, like on your device, Kimberly. It could just be that you have your mic turned down or your volume turned down on your computer or phone. Huh. The fires are in Canada. Yeah, I'm on the coast, so we're not having any smoke, at least not yet. But sometimes the smoke blows over the mountains into the coastal area every summer. That's pretty awful, actually, when it happens. One year, it was so much smoke that there was ash on the deck, like a quarter of an inch of ash, which is pretty bad for your lungs, right? We all have good air purifiers here in our homes, just in case. Sacred geometry, Maria. All of Washington, D.C. was laid out geometrically by the Masons who moved the capital of the United States from Annapolis to the swamp of D.C., which they did drain the swamp. And it's also got sacred geometry in its layout. Little tidbit on the Masons and the founding of D.C. Okay, Adrian's taking off. Okay, well, let's see how well you do when you reconnect in the Wi-Fi. And don't worry, you'll have a replay anyway. If anybody here is a balsamic tier person and patron and accidentally paid, I've been busy because my son's wedding is today. But please send me a little note that would say a refund and on header. And I asked you guys to do that in Patreon, and I'll just refund you. It's easier to do than anything else. because all balsamic tear people are free. Stonehenge, been there, love Stonehenge. And Costa Rica is one of my favorite places in the world. When I went there for 2 weeks with my sister, drove all over the country, thought this is a place I could retire to. A gorgeous country, beautiful place. Thanks, Sabrina. Yes, I'm teaching a class today on a day of a wedding. I can't believe I tied it up like that, but that's part of my reality. And I love crop circle lore. I used to research crop circles. And I want to say one more thing before we start class. I had a scientist friend of mine, he passed away, who was a researcher for crop circles. One of those people had a scanning electron microscope, and he would look at the stalks of the crop circle plant matter, and they've now determined that there's like heat, and the stalks are bent, and the cells in the stalks, the plant cells are changed. They're not normal. So it's actually like a kind of heat that bends the stalks. It's not mechanical force. So it's not like good old, stupid theory of guys dragging a sled with a plank of wood that they tried to tell us that's how intricate crop circles are formed. And people also say that if you go to a crop circle and walk around during a recent crop circle, you'll feel stuff like electrical energies, or you'll feel altered. I've never had a chance to walk through a recently created crop circle, but that's what I hear. So there you go. Now we're going to get started. So I'm going to get the recording back up. So let me put it back up. I may co-opt somebody who's sophisticated here to co-host, because people may show up when I'm in slideshow mode. Kimberly's rejoining. Maybe I'll ask her. She often does that for me. Because basically what'll happen is I'll be in slideshow, people will be coming in, and I have to exit the slideshow to let them in. Hey, Regina. Let's see if Kimberly made it back in. Kimberly, you have sound yet? Come on the mic if you do.
I do. It went into some kind of crazy, maybe. Go into an update. Yeah.
Could I make you a co-host
Yes.
and people inform me if someone shows up a little late?
Okay.
Thanks, honey. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Sorry, I had to bounce in and out.
Not at all. Kimberly's an astrologer as well. She has a YouTube channel, guys. So go check her out. Are you still calling your channel Kimberly Crow?
Yeah, until I start my new one. What do you think about the looking glass? That's the one I want to do.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Just stop there. Yes.
I want to bring, that we talk about all kinds of weird ass stuff.
Looking glass. I had a synchronicity about that this morning. I literally was looking at a poster I made with my partner about 10 minutes ago, and the word looking glass is there.
Oh, wow. I can't believe that, because I thought, I shouldn't tell them yet.
No, absolutely love the name of the
That's
title.
So funny.
Unique. Yes. Do Looking Glass. It's a brilliant channel name. Okay, it's a wonderful.
We can talk about all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah, that's so perfect for you. Okay, she's a modern day mystic, guy. She covers it all, and an artist. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is advanced uses of the asteroids, and we're going to go into the slideshow mode. So let's do that together. And if you have any problems, you can't hear me, something goes wrong in my slideshow and you're like, I can't hear, just come on the mic and let me know if it's staticky on my audio, anything like that. Just mic up, guys. It's a small group of us. If you ask a question later on, especially if it gets personal, know that other people will see this when this course is for sale later on, right? So you want to be careful that if you're being intimate with a small group later on, it could be watched by many other people. So sometimes that's just a thought to keep in mind. You can always ask a question without the photograph of you, without the video going as well. So we're starting today to talk about asteroids in an advanced usage. Let me remind you that the best way to learn to use asteroids is to parse your natal chart, look at what in your natal chart is captivating you, because that gets you into the addiction to asteroids, first of all. So my advanced asteroids class is a takeoff on the basic asteroids, amazing asteroids class. Over 3,000 people have taken that class because it's free. I give it away now. And the point of that class, I just want to reiterate why we're paying attention to asteroids at all. For me, it's a sense of wonder. Like, how can it be that I was born with the Oracle of Delphi on my ascendant? I must have always wanted to be seeing the future, right? A prophet, a seer, the Oracle. People consult me for guidance, for oracular guidance. So you all have these weird placements when you were born that will tell you that your life is some construct in a reality that may be much more profound than you imagine, that there's parts of your story that aren't happenstance, but fated, destined, and plotted and planned from the moment of your incarnation. That is what I like about astrology in general. And that's what I really like about the devil is in the details, right? The angels and devils are in the details. That's the asteroids. All right. So this is what we're talking about. Using the asteroids more in a proactive manner, not just in a natal delineation. And there's nothing, oops, I got to do a little change on this. Hang on. You've got to be kidding. I haven't had a problem with the software forever, like in which it locks me into a mode that I can't get out of. It's going to do it to me today. You got to be kidding. The software sometimes locks me in slideshow mode and the big screen, and I'm stuck in it. I'm stuck in it. I'll just go with what I'm stuck in for now. Holy man, I just wanted to get out to do something. Yes, this has not happened in like a year. Okay. So let's see if I can get through it without having to get out of it. It's because you guys are so big in my screen as I see your faces, and it's blocking my view of my own slideshow. So that's the asteroid belt, as you all know, probably if you've taken the intro level. It's like a smashed planet, let's face it, right? The ancients called it Tiamat. Some kind of planetary body was in orbit between Mars and Jupiter. It got broken up, and this is what it created, a space rubble. 24,000 asteroids in the belt, I think, have been named already. Amateur astrologers find it, they get to name it. They name it from mythology, friends, family, their own name. And that's why we have so many names now to work with. And this is a good old Corpus Hermeticum quote about asteroids, troops of diamonds, looking spirits, looking like a battalion and changing array from moment to moment, changing places and not staying in position. That's true of the asteroid belt. And the reason is, unlike Mars and Jupiter, who orbit the sun in a fixed orbit, the asteroids are moving at different speeds. And so therefore it'll be like, oh, there goes Juno, and then there goes Hermes asteroid, and they're swirling all together in a belt, but they're actually not in lockstep, right? There's different speeds, closer in, further out. So they look like they're dancing, actually, if you're an astronomer. So Corpus Hermeticum knew, this ancient 2,000-year-old text knew that there were asteroids. As I'm trying to say, the ancients knew there was an asteroid belt there. I don't know how they knew, but they knew. And Demetra George is very known for her work on asteroids, and her book, famous book, is the one about the darkness, Finding Our Way Through the Darkness. If you like asteroids, go buy the book. She says the daemons were conceptualized as thousands of intermediate and semi-divine beings, spirit, invisible and linked, divine and human realms, and later agents of planetary fate. So she actually feels like, just like the quote I gave you, the Corpus Hermeticum, that the ancients were quite well aware that there were asteroids and there was an asteroid belt. So, this is not anything that wasn't known by the ancient world. That's what I'm saying. They didn't name the asteroids like we've been able to do today. Jessica, yeah, thanks, Kimberly. And so we have now a new tool in astrology, which is beautiful. You can find the name of your dad, your mom, your friends, your family. Quite often you can find the name of anything you want by looking in the asteroid lineup. So the early asteroids are daemons, demons. Both of those are true. The idea of the daemon came from the ancient Babylon and Zoroaster religions in Persia. And it's a guardian, an attending spirit, a fallen angel, or a helper. All is true. What's your daemon in life? What's your whispering guiding spirit, right? So she talks about this a lot, and her course, Asteroids, Fate, and Destiny, you can purchase it on her website. It's really a beautiful lecture, basically, but it's a lovely lecture. So Robert Schmidt was a traditional astrologer, and he didn't believe in the asteroids, or didn't think they were useful. And she said, you're wrong. And she showed him that the asteroid Philosophia and the asteroid Shelley were in his chart in extremely important places, and the asteroid Plato. And the guy is a lover of philosophy, and he was converted, just like a religious conversion, to the importance of the minor asteroids. So how do you do the asteroids 101? Tight aspects, guys. Like, I don't use like a 12-degree orb for an asteroid, right? I mean, which you could potentially use for like Pluto or something. No, it's like it's intimately going to intersect a planet in your chart, your midheaven, your ascendant, your descendant, your IC, ideally within 3 to 5 degrees. Some people say 3, but I've seen them work perfectly at a 5-degree orb. So then the other thing is, this is not, astrology isn't rules, astrology is experimentation. You look at the asteroid in your chart and ask yourself, does it apply to me in a natal chart setting? So if Pythia was 5 degrees or 8 degrees off my ascendant, but I know that I have oracular inclination in my life, and I've worked in oracular ways of professions like psychic readings and astrology readings, then I'm going to say, well, it works anyway at an 8-degree orb. So always just look at your chart like a scientist. Make a hypothesis. It should work at this number of degrees and see if it does. And this is the good old looking glass rabbit hole, wonderland energy here that all asteroids will take you down, whether you want to go or not, you know. Basically, it will give you the names of people and your marriage partners and your children. You didn't know you're going to name your child like, you know, Charlene, and you find the asteroid Charlene conjunct the moon in the house of children or something. You're going to, oh my God, it was a destined name. So you'll begin to see in your natal sky, this is all information that's deeper and more in depth in my basic asteroids class, which is for free, that you can get under my YouTube videos, on my Cosmic Moonshine newsletter, anywhere you want. It's everywhere. But I'm just repeating the basics for us today, right? And then themes of like, what's your nemesis? Where is your fortunes and your downfalls in life? You know, Apollo, where can you be a leader? You can just put these asteroids in your chart and then ask yourself if it's true. Again, I say they need to probably be conjunct an angle, you know, ascendant, midheaven, descendant, all that stuff, or a north node, south node placement, or a planet. Probably that's important. If it's a big planet like outer planet that's slow moving, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, understand that those are true for everybody born within months of you, right? Like with Pluto, if you had like asteroid, oh my God, asteroid Apollo for leadership on your Pluto. Well, that's true for everybody born within like 4 months or 5 months of you. That asteroid is going to, well, maybe a month of you. Pluto's slow moving, the asteroid's a faster moving body, but it'll still be connected to a sense that, you know, this is a transgenerational placement. This is a transpersonal planet. And so if you have an asteroid conjunct Pluto, Uranus, or Neptune, then ask yourself what Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune connect to in your natal chart in terms of more faster moving inner planets, right, in the sky when you were born. So that's how I look at Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus anyway in a client's chart. If they're not really hooked up to an intimate placement in your natal sky, then they're probably kind of like just things that have to do with the generation in which you were born. So keep that in mind when you're looking for asteroids on those outer planets. So this is my wow factor, the client who channeled David Bowie and other famous people, Elvis Presley, but she has asteroid David Bowie on her midheaven. That's her primary thing. That's her favorite thing she does. In other words, that's her main channel. Ken Wilber organization, second in command, third in command. And Ken Wilber's integral organization was a client of mine. He has asteroid Wilber on his midheaven for career and purpose. Ken Wilber's a famous spiritual teacher. One client came to me and said she was with Jesus and Mary in a past life, Mary Magdalene and Jesus. And I'm like, yeah, well, whatever, everyone was. And I put those asteroids, Magdalene and Yeshua for Jesus in her chart, and those were conjunct her son. So there was something true about what she said to me. And a woman wrote a book about Medusa, or was writing a book about Medusa, and the asteroid Medusa was on Venus, the goddess of the arts, in her 5th house of creativity. And she didn't know that, right? And she was compelled to write a fiction story about Medusa. So you got to say, what the hell, right? What the hell? Now, how do we use asteroids rather than just know about our natal disposition? And we use them the way we use any astrological tool. How are they transiting through your sky? How do they play out picture in your solar arc chart? For those of you who know solar arcs, it's a progress chart where planets move 1 degree a year. How do you use them in your solar return chart? Now, I had a great question the other day in a group setting, a Patreon meeting, I believe, and someone said, well, do you only use the asteroids that are in your natal chart? You first use the asteroids that are in your natal chart. not only, first. So again, easy example. If Pythia is on my ascendant at birth, it must be an important asteroid. I should track her in the sky. I should watch where she goes as she moves around the heavens. Every asteroid will move 4 to 6 years around the zodiacal, around the sun. So in our chart, I'll have a Pythia return to my ascendant every 5 years or so. And it can be a resetting of the goal of the oracle within me in the character of Lori. So look at your main asteroids that are important positions and always ask yourself, well, what happens when that one's on my midheaven? Because it's important to my natal sky. Or when it's returning to its spot, the asteroid return, which is a reset button for the meaning of what that asteroid will do for you in the next 4, 5, or 6 years after the reset. So I don't really always track my asteroids. Sometimes I'm more curious and I go back and look. But it's important to note that if it has a pivotal role in the natal sky by a conjunction to an angle or to a planet or to a node, that it might actually be a very critical factor in transit as opposed to ignoring it completely. And of course, when you cast a solar return chart, I would say to myself, Pythia is integrated on my ascendant. So where does she fall, like any planetary body, in a solar return? Now she's in my career house in my solar return. She wants me to stand up and be an oracle. Like, hey, look at me, guys. Here's the future. Prophet, oracle, seer. So you can track the little guys, these little devils in the details in your astrological solar return birthday chart. And of course, in the solar return birthday chart, even more potent would be if a natal asteroid is conjunct a planet in the solar return, giving it more boost rather than just floating around all by its lonesome. Because when it conjuncts a natal planet or an angle, like ascendant, descendant in the solar return, it's going to have more power, right? So those are basic premises that you would consider. But yes, you can also look at other asteroids. Imagine you're going through a period of your life where you're having unrequited love. You're yearning for someone to return the love you feel for them. The asteroid for unrequited love is in the sky. You can use Echo. Echo is a story in Greek mythology of unrequited love. So you go, where's Echo transiting? What's it doing? Then you might even investigate Echo in your natal chart that you never noticed that she was important to you. I've had periods in my life where I've gone through really weird stories and I'm like, like a downdraft, a downfall, a dark night of the soul. I've been abducted to the underworld or something. And I'll look for asteroids that look like those stories, right? Being like, taken into the dark night, abducted to the underworld, and like the asteroids would be Persephone and Proserpina when, Hades abducted her, Greek and Roman version, raped her and taken her to the underworld. You want to check where Persephone and Proserpina are if you've had some bad stories happen where they're literal, like you've unfortunately been raped, or you've been abducted into some dark night where you feel trapped in the underworld. So those are stories that you can look for when they're happening in your life and find out where those asteroids might be going in your natal sky. It might give you some guidance. So that's a broad overview. Now I'm going to try my best because there's a lot of content here and I may even shorten it today. I may not go through every slide because it's pretty complex astrology. And that's because I did try to teach this class about a year and a half ago. And I decided I wasn't going to post it for resale because I wanted to add more detail. And so this is a very long slideshow. And so we'll see if we scoop-de-doop through it or we go at a slow pace or whatever. Asteroids in transit, I've already covered this, ascendant, descendant, look to themes unfolding from those asteroids for fame, sickness, healing, riches, luck. There's asteroids for everything you want to go for. In the intro course, I teach you to use astro.com to find a lot of those asteroids. Astro Gold, my software, has at least 50 asteroids I haven't counted that I can just easily grab with delineations of their meaning. There are very complex asteroid softwares if you have a non-Mac. Just Google it, asteroid softwares for non-Mac, and you could splatter your chart with thousands of asteroids, So there's a lot of different ways to access the asteroid knowledge. I usually go asteroid hunting. Okay. I have a feeling that I'm in a theme that reminds me of, nemesis, downfall, whatever is going on. And I look for the name of that asteroid by Greek myth, for example, or modern day asteroids for people's names. If I encounter somebody in real life sometimes and I'm like, oh my God, there's something about this person, I feel really connected to them. I'll see if I can find their first or last name in the asteroids. and I'll look for sound alikes, right? So if someone's name is like Charlotte, but I find Charlotta, of course I'll take Charlotta, right? Asteroid Charlotta for Charlotte. So I just want to give you a little wonder and awe, just a reminder how this stuff works. The asteroid Atlantis is in my third house at 21 degrees of Aries, and it's conjunct this planet beside it, planetoid, whatever, dwarf planet. It's Athena, the asteroid Athena, that little diamond with the cross in it. And of course, my sun is there as well. So it's Sun, Athena, Atlantis. But Athena was being activated. So let's talk about that story. So Atlantis, when as a child, all my life, I've always felt I was from Atlantis. I've had a thing about Atlantean lore. Didn't know the asteroid Atlanta was with that stellium in my Aries part of my sky. Kimberly, can you grab Ashley for it? Thank you. And I didn't realize that it was actually a very potent asteroid for me. So that's again the wonder and awe. And the third house themes are writing, learning, travel, oracles, divination, the online world, some of the meanings where this asteroid is falling. But you can't make this stuff up, because I wasn't tracking the asteroid in the sky when somebody sent me the book, The Return of Lost Teachings of Atlantis. And I was having an Atlantis return. I was having this chart back here. I was having Atlantis conjunct Juno for partnership on Atlantis and on Athena. If you have Athena well placed in your chart, you will be an author. She rules authorship, books, wisdom, and knowledge, among other things. So I was listening to a lot of online content about Edgar Cayce's channeling on Atlantis during an unknown Atlantis return. A friend sent me the Atlantis book during an unknown Atlantis return in my chart. My third house also has Mercury, the god of mail, and the book was mailed to me physically by Amazon during an Atlantis return. So that's what I mean. Every 5 years, Atlantis returns to Atlantis, let's say, and during that tight window of time, like a couple, 3 or 4 weeks, all of this stuff was happening. Juno was on Atlantis, the person in transit at the bottom of the chart, that's transiting green Juno, the flower with Atlantis. It was my partner, the guy I'm still with, who sent me the book. And I didn't even add this, but guess where he sent the book from? The city of Atlanta, Georgia. I mean, like, that's where he was living at the time, right? Just outside of Atlanta. So it was like, it's eerie, it's spooky, and it's weird, right? A guy living in Atlantis has a book about Atlantis where I'm having an Atlantis return. Okay. The death asteroids are really cool. I mean, it's a darker subject matter, but I want to show you how to use them, how you can see them in natal charts and by transit, right? So this is a famous person's chart. And the asteroid, one of the death asteroids is Requiem, which means like to have an honoring funeral for a person who has died, right? So Requiem, like a funeral mass. And it's funny because the man who named the asteroid, the guy with the telescope, his mom had just passed away. So that's why he named it Requiem, like to represent an honoring of his deceased mother. So in this famous person's chart, they have Requiem in the 11th house of recognition, midheaven. 11th house midheaven people are often quite associated with large followings, right? People follow them. They have an audience or a celebrity or following of some kind. That's one of the ways midheaven 11th people outpicture their midheaven in floating whole sign house midheavens. I have my midheaven in the 11th house, so I can sort of speak to that. And this is on Saturn, when Saturn represents age, right? The elder, the senex. So we could say this person may have a well-established, long-lasting, famous career. And when they die, Requiem, they will have a funeral that honors them. So that's the way you would code that person's natal chart. If you knew to look for Requiem, and if you want to know if you might die as a famous person with an honoring funeral, go look for Requiem in your natal sky. Now, who was this person? Drum roll. Queen Elizabeth. And so basically, Queen Elizabeth died September 8th. And of course, she had a massive honoring funeral. If you really go down the death asteroids rabbit hole, asteroid Lachesis determines the span of life, like the cutters of the threads of life. And the asteroid Lachesis was conjunct her natal Damocles. I can't say Damocles, the sword, the looming sword of doom. Okay, so the looming sword of doom was being crossed by the one who snips your life at the time of her death. The Egyptian god of the dead is Osiris, and he was traveling in her 8th house of death over Ceres, the grim reaperess, when she died. Most people don't know this because it's something I discovered, but she's not just a harvest goddess. She has a scythe and a sickle, and sometimes she actually portends death. So that's a theme I've discovered by using her for like the last 6-7 years. So what about Donald Trump recently? This is an addition because, of course, Trump is in the news cycle. Donald Trump was born with that angel asteroid on his moon, along with the asteroid Salacia for sex scandals and scandals in general, in his 5th house of business success, sex, and children. So, Donald Trump coded to always have salacious, gossipy, scandalous stories about things to do with sex, business, and children. Now, children, I haven't seen a scandal with his children yet. We'll see if scandals develop. On the day of the attempt on his life recently, when he was almost assassinated, asteroid Medusa, as you can see to the left, Medusa is Medusa. It's the whole name Medusa, but the software is cutting her down. What for decapitation, losing one's head, was over his ascendant. Now, this is where we go about, as astrologers being empiricists. Medusa's at 21 degrees. His ascendant, which is his body, is at 29. Mars, which cuts and severs in his chart, is at 26. Medusa suggests he may lose his head at the time that he almost died. This is the day of the shooting. You're looking on the sky here. However, also because, as you know, most of you astrology literates understand that Uranus was sitting with Mars on his midheaven on the star Algol on July 15th, July 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. And I had predicted he may face harm's way, and I used the word assassination during that window of time. Other astrologers also thought he could be subject to violence during that time. And those are the devils are in the details as well, when you consider that having that conjunction of Mars and Uranus on the midheaven, the escape hatch to heaven, high noon, visible public space, squaring his ascendant would be very much a dangerous time for his physical well-being. So Medusa crossing his ascendant at the same time made me think he would die. I knew that Medusa was crossing his ascendant. So I thought that he would be assassinated, not that he might be assassinated. I didn't think to look for any other asteroid. That's the problem with asteroids. Sometimes you have to know to look for it. I didn't know that Angel was on his moon when he was born, because my software at AstroGold doesn't cover that asteroid. I have to plunk it in manually at astro.com. Hindsight, I thought to look for Angel, because I said to my sister one morning, he must have an angel protecting him when he turned his head and the bullet didn't kill him. And I looked for the asteroid. It's on his moon. He's born with a guardian angel on his moon. Moon is your prana, the life force that animates the body. It's also therefore impacts the body. Things that impact the moon can impact the body. And he was literally guardian angeled out at birth. And then you add Medusa, yes, trying to harm him, but Angel's ahead of the curve. Angel is here, like, I've got this. I'm gonna support. Oh, actually, Medusa's at 19 degrees, and Angel is at 21. The software little dots show that. So Angel was ahead of Medusa, approaching his ascendant, which represents his physical form and his personality and character. So he had a guardian angel save him from a bullet. Hindsight shows that. I didn't know to look for Angel. I would have told Donald, you're safe up there. Don't worry about it. I think you've got an angel saving your ass. My God. Asteroids in the solar return chart are very useful. I think this is probably the more important tool. So if you are into your solar return and know how to cast your birthday chart, you might find this to be quite lovely, because a solar return in essence is a snapshot of the sky when the sun returns to its position astronomically when you were born, not calendrically. Sometimes your birthday is a day before or a day after your actual birthday, calendrical birthday. But it kind of bakes it in, they see where the asteroids in your natal chart transiting around are quick moving objects that apply for a short time. a solar return is indicative of themes for a year of your life. They don't just take one time, one moment of time. They say this asteroid is highlighted for the entire time. So I want you to look at your solar return asteroids and think, oh my God, look at angels on my midheaven. I don't think that's just about a short period of time. You've got like a guardian angel protecting your body, your midheaven for a whole age. Therefore, it's kind of like an enduring, baked-in archetype. That's what I like about it. Solar return asteroids are giving you a good year of their attention. Solar return asteroids should be looked at in context, as I say always, close proximity to planetary placements in the solar return. Donald Trump. It's a good topic these days, right? I made this slideshow 18 months ago when I taught this class sometime in the early spring of 2023. So this is an old slide, right? But it's useful right now. I can't believe this. Asteroids America, Apollo, the sun god for leadership, of course, is in Donald Trump's first house. This I know. He's born to be Apollo-like, a leader. As Apollo looks like a circle with a swoosh at 29 degrees, perfectly conjoined his 29-degree ascendant on fixed star Regulus, little king, fame, power, glory, and leadership and rulership. He was born to be a king or a president. That's as part of his natal code, and to be Apollo, like a sun god. Apollo is a leader, but also Apollo is a bright sunlight energy, right? We look to the sun for things like growth, prosperity. I'm not pro-Trump. I'm not pro-Biden. I'm not Republican. I cannot believe how many people don't believe me. I'm really tired of defending myself. We're just looking at astrology. Asteroid Hecate, the triple thresholds, ghosty goddess of the worlds, the ghosts, the worlds between worlds, or also the archetype of thresholds. It sits on his Uranus, North Node Sun, stellium in his 11th house. Now, what I thought about that in many ways, forget about the transits of Hecate. Hecate represents this kind of guardian of the threshold, right? The thing that says, will you take this road or that road? Which way do you want to go? And he's kind of born with this like spooky ghost whispering feminine triple goddess, mother, maiden, crone. She's the crone of the triple goddess archetype, predominantly placed. Yes, it's on Uranus for everyone born within, a month of him, but it's also on his North Node by 3 degrees. There's something about Donald Trump that makes me think of timeline splitting. Some people have commented when he missed the bullet, we split a timeline, the one who died, the one who didn't. So I'm just going to entertain what does Hecate really mean there? I wonder. So asteroid Cupido is on his moon, as I mentioned, also Salacia. I didn't draw it in here, but it's there. And also angel. So he has Salacia for scandals, he's Cupido for life force, energy, passion, and ardor. And he also has, of course, Salacia and Cupido and angel on his moon in his 5th house. So he's got a very activated moon. With the South Node, he's pulling that energy from past life, spiritual and past life material. In 2016 solar return chart, he won the election, which is very interesting given the placement of his asteroids at the time of the election. So Donald Trump, this is his solar return chart, is a Leo rising. Again, anytime you cast your solar return chart, guys, anytime, and you see yourself returning to the rising sign that you were born under, then you're having a return to your natal code and a desire by the sky to point you towards your true destiny. So that was the kind of year he was under when he was running for the presidency in 2016. The sun god was in his 10th house. Well, obviously that's self-evident, right? He's going to end up looking like a leader among men because the sun god is on his ascendant in his birth chart, and then suddenly lobs himself into the top of the sky and makes him a leader among men. Sun god Apollo, 10th house placement. And his reputation, also like the whole idea of being highly esteemed with a sun god in top of your sky, is flowing to his Jupiter North Node in the 2nd house of the solar return. Just the flow from Jupiter, end of story. Doesn't matter, Jupiter's condition in Virgo suggests powerful, positive developments for him in 2016. Second house is a house of speech. You could say he would be speaking a lot, and he was, of course, stumping to win. America and Cupido asteroids are sitting with Juno, the goddess of marriage and partnership, and the moon in his third house with the IC. Now, it's funny with Juno, because Juno represents king and queen of Mount Olympus. In a modern day presidential campaign, it's president and vice president or running mate, right? So he would be doing a lot of America, running mate, third house travel. Of course, that's what he did. He went around all over doing MAGA meetings, I guess. It can also represent his wife, Melania, the king and queen of the White House as well, and being moon. The moon always represents where you are popular with the masses or the people. And Venus is a ruler of the IC, the bottom of the chart. The IC is the root of the chart where you're going to be. And it is indicative, because Venus is with the sun, that he will have great career gains that will also reflect third house matters. So fulfillment of his hopes and dreams, great gains in his career, but also connected to the root of the chart. Anything that touches the root of your chart not only represents where you will live, it also represents the fertile soil from which your midheaven blossoms. It's the root of your purpose. You know, with Mars in the solar return, FYI, and the lot of fortune in the fourth house, it just means changing his home. He's going to move from his home. Of course, he moved from his home. He moved to the White House. 2016 natal chart. Stories with his natal sky and solar return over in an overlap, basically. Outside wheel is the solar return. Inside wheel is his natal chart. It's a super auspicious lineup. I'm looking at those asteroids and going, wow, wow, wow. You know, the midheaven of his natal sky is conjunct the Apollo and the solar return. If that didn't convince you that he would win the election, nothing else would, really. If you were looking for the asteroid Apollo and you knew to find it, you would have bet against the crowd, and you would have said he would have won in 2016. You would have been a great winner of a great long odds bet. The solar return America Cupido combination on the outside wheel are in a broad conjunction to Jupiter for auspiciousness, and that's down at the bottom of the sky in the third house. The vertex, VX, means life pivot turning points. It can change your destiny, usually through the intersection of other people, but just pivotal life turning points. The VX on the outer wheel of the solar return is at 20 degrees, and it happens to be overlapping Cupido, moon, popular people, salacia, scandal. Of course, grabber pussy and all those scandals were happening during that time. Excuse my language. And to do with sexual stuff, you know. Fifth house matters. And also, don't forget, he also has angel there. So angel, vertex, turning point, salacious, scandal, passion, Cupido, energies played out during the election. But populist present. He was called a populist present candidate. And anytime you see the moon and engaged in anything for politicians or celebrities, the moon will represent the degree of popularity one may have or may not have at any given time in a solar return chart. So we see that the moon is in a very powerful place, flowing to his natal ascendant in a trine, meaning he would have a very popular year, basically. Oh, sorry, that's his natal chart. He's always going to be popular. The solar return moon is sitting in the third house where he's traveling, speaking, lecturing, communicating. What do you call it? Those things they do, political ads that go over well, popular political ads by his ad campaign. Those are third house features in an election year. I would also say, just a sidebar, having the moon conjunct Neptune in his natal Neptune conjunct the moon during the canvassing and the winning of that election is like he can wow the masses. He can make them, you know, he'd spin very popular stories that wow the masses, like spin cycles and stuff. Finally, he lost in 2020, and there's so many reasons he was going to lose, which I called that loss as well, just from the basic astrology, let alone using the asteroids. But when we add asteroids, and Chiron is, by the way, an asteroid, Chiron is on his midheaven in the solar return. Like, you know, a wounded reputation, a wounded career, a wounded success story. And then Apollo is in Cancer in his first house. but it's on the top half of the ascendant. And the top half of the ascendant is kind of in like a 12th house energy. It's not in front, below the ascendant, moving in zodiacal order. That gives it a weak placement, unlike his natal Apollo, which is perfectly fused with his ascendant. So it's like behind him, in other words, it's in the rearview mirror, it's in the back seat of his car. That's not an auspicious placement for Apollo. And we look at Apollo because he is ruled by Apollo in the sense that Apollo is on his ascendant. So for him, it's a critical Pythia on my ascendant. Apollo, Donald Trump, he needs to track Apollo. That's important to him. Cupido is with Jupiter in its fall in the 7th house of enemies, opponents, and adversaries. Joe Biden is his opponent in an election. So that's inauspicious, to say the least, and during that election year, to see that Joe Biden's, that his opponent is Jupiter, giving his opponent strength, that Cupido is ardor and passion maybe for the opponent, not for him. Someone else has a lot of ardor and passion inside of them or attending to them in the sky. He doesn't get that energy of Cupido where people could be falling for the story, falling in love with the candidate, whatever you want to call it. And Hecate, the triple crossroad. Oh, did I say? Yeah, Hecate, the triple thresholds goddess, is sitting on the south node of loss with the vertex and America in his house of karmic matters. 6th house, 8th house are karmic. So, and also 6th house is your job. What's his job? He's a president. South node, loss, threshold crossings, loss. Does not look good. America loses the job to be leader of America. And so you can see that there's a subtlety there that says that there's going to be a loss. We're looking at Hecate because she's with his north node, his sun, he's at the top of the sky, prominent in his chart with his midheaven, so is the sun and north node, sorry. So there's something about Donald Trump's, power of Hecate that fails him, she's like a Halloween goddess, the spooky, the mysterious, the hidden. And I also wonder sometimes if that's not a part of him, because the way he presents sun, north node energies of leadership natally, it's also to talk about the deep state, drain the swamp, the mysterious hidden factors behind the scenes. He reaches out to people on, I can get rid of those darker forces that run the show. Part of his populist appeal is that. Also, 2020. This is his other asteroid story. Just overlap his natal chart for the solar return chart to see how things line up or not line up for him. And with that outside chart being the solar return, you'll see Apollo lands in his 12th house up on the top right. That is like a dark house of jails, isolation, self-undoing. You don't want planets there when you're running to win an election in general, let alone having his super powerful Apollo, his ally, stuck in his natal 12th house. Not good at all. And debilitated energies there with Saturn Cancer as well, playing out with Apollo, his natal of debilitated Saturn. He argued he lost the election because it was stolen. I do not disagree that it may have been, but I keep looking for the and I'm not pro-Trump, but there's nefarious forces that work in all the politics, both sides of the aisle, so to speak. And I keep thinking if anyone can think of an asteroid that might represent thievery, that would be an interesting one to look at asteroid wise for the 2000. Mars is a thief. Mars represents stealing and thievery, but an asteroid that represents thievery would be extremely interesting if anyone can come up with one. Solar return America, Hecate are sitting with the transiting south node. Again, loss upon loss. It just is an extremely weak story. And it's also his nodal return. And he's south node, north node, nodal return. And nodal returns are going to put you in your destined place. For him to lose, it was part of some kind of soul code, right? He was meant to step away or to go down in order to go back up. If he needs to go back up or not, we don't know if he'll win. We're going to try to figure that out. In 2024, solar return. Now, this black screen shows that I cast it, this chart. This slideshow went back, I think, to February of 2023 or sometime way back. So Trump's 2024 solar return chart. Oh, and actually, I might have done the slideshow. Sorry about that, in the fall of 22, actually. But whatever it was, this is what I was looking at back then. Asteroid America, all right, is in his 8th house of death, right? God bless America, with the planet of death, Pluto. Asteroid America in his natal chart is with his ascendant. He's here to be Apollo, leader of America. Now we have Asteroid America in a deep, dark, secret place of invisibility in a solar return with Pluto, the god of death. Cupido is conjunct Mars, and Mars is in detriment. Mars is not in a happy place. That doesn't work well for him either. Cupido is a part of his natal story where he has a lot of good things happening, and yet that is not true for this solar return energy. I don't know about this, but Apollo in the 2nd house of money with no connection to his ascendant or to his midheaven. You know, the ascendant is how he's going to rise up, and Apollo is his leader, and Apollo's stuck in the 2nd house, which is be very confusing for me astrologically. I'm wondering if Apollo in the 2nd house may represent that he is going to be, you know, doing a lot of speaking. Well, every politician does a lot of speaking during a run up to winning the election. And that also confuses me. And some of you know a little bit about how to profect the solar return chart. So let me just say that here for those of you who are more sophisticated. You can move through time in any solar return chart. With his ascendant being in Cancer, you could start. And by the way, if any of you know your fixed stars, and some of you do, his ascendant is on the dog star Sirius at 13 degrees and a half of the sign of Cancer, where we just had a new moon a month ago. And that's auspicious because the sun of the United States is fused with his natal ascendant. And that feels like a good thing. But what about this problem, Apollo's placement? So very weak for him in an election year. And opposite Pluto. Apollo opposite Pluto in the 8th house of death can mean death of a sun god. Now, is it him or another sun god? Joe Biden is a sun god, right? Joe Biden had COVID and recovered. Joe Biden may not still be healthy enough to continue to be alive. Now, I'm not against Joe Biden. I'm just saying Joe Biden's chart is still filled and fraught with health challenges. So whatever. But if it's a Trump story, what is this sun god peril? So if we want to look for a timing marker for that, there's a couple of methods you can use. If you take the sun in June, go to his sun in the 12th house. We're going to perfect from the sun. And this slideshow doesn't let me annotate while I'm in slideshow mode, so I can't point at it. Sorry. Keynote doesn't let me do that. But just look to the sun in the Gemini in the 12th house and say that the 12th house is the month of his birthday, the whole month of June. And then that makes the next month of July in a solar return of 24, the Cancer house, right? Where we see the Vestal flame of sacred devotion, and we see his ascendant, his physical body, and he did come into harm's way. So there's just that. And then we move into the 2nd house, and that would be the month of August, for example, right? So we go around, what could happen in August, around the 5th of August, where the Apollo is sitting, and we see the death of a sun god? What could happen? So we're looking for the first week of August. If we perfect from the 1st house, which you can also do, the ascendant, that means that where could the death of a sun god happen? June is the month of the ascendant house, the 1st house. July is the house of the death of a sun god opposite Pluto. Well, he almost died. So maybe that's all that is. So sometimes you could try to figure out the solar return asteroids and planets by timing it. If you want to track the darn thing all around the circle and you say we have an election in November and we start, for example, from the ascendant and we track the ascendant being in the month of June, right? June is the Cancer month of his birthday. June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February. Oh, sorry. June, July, August, September, October. November is a 6th house month. If we profect it from the ascendant, and we all know the 6th house is a weak month. Right. So there's that again, like this doesn't look particularly auspicious for him to win the election. And if we perfect from the sun, it's his 5th house, which isn't inauspicious or auspicious. but it's got Athena there, which is about legal matters. Athena is a lawyer and an author. What kind of legal issues could he come into that could interrupt his election, or the election is contested legally? I don't know. This is a weak story for his election year. And I don't like a stellium in the 12th house of jails, hospitals. That's all those Jupiter, Mercury, Sun. So the weakness of his solar return is pretty rough. But also Kamala Harris's solar return for the election is also extremely rough. So both of them have rough looking solar returns. And a few astrologers think the election won't happen. There'll be some kind of delay or disruption based on the sky at the time of the election. So, and I said for a long time, I started saying it a year ago, I don't think Trump or Biden will be on the ballot for the election. Well, we already know Biden's off, but why would Trump not be there? That's the thing I'm wondering, if I'm right, which I may not be. Natal solar return 2024, overlapping his natal sky, just to reinforce some of the stories I've been saying about the weakness of his solar return in the election year. You know, his solar return, Apollo, is sitting on Pluto. Mars, it's dark energies. You see that Apollo is in the left in that big oval I've drawn over the Mars Pluto energy of his natal chart. So again, death of a sky leader, death of a solar figure. He almost died. Maybe that's all we're seeing here, escaping death. But he still may be under that energy because it's baked in for a year. It's baked in for the age. He's still at peril. And he's at peril because Uranus is on Algo squaring his ascendant for like another 5 months. He's in perilous times. If you try to kill you try to kill him once, right? This is deep state, by the way. Don't believe the patsy on the roof. They try to kill him once with a bullet. Next time they'll try to poison him, because he's got the lot of poison on Neptune, and it will be activated during this year. And bottom line, it'll look like a heart attack, but of course it was, what they do in stealthy ways to get rid of leaders that they don't want in power. Now, again, I don't care. I'm not Republican. I'm just talking astrology looks rough for him, and his life is in jeopardy. Okay, so if you perfect from the solar return Cancer first house, July is the solar return second house, which I already mentioned. So that I'm already saying, this risky attempt on his life has already happened. And the Cupido, solar return Cupido, is with a debilitated in the solar return Mars in the 10th house with his midheaven, with Uranus on a malefic star Algol. What a hot mess. It doesn't look good. I mean, because Cupido is an ally in his chart for his populist ways and how people love him. So that's just a weak spot for the Cupido story. And asteroid America, which he's born with on his ascendant, is in the 7th house of opponents with Pluto. So it could be the death of Joe Biden. That's all that may mean, because, Joe Biden is there, and death to your opponent. But it's already the death of Joe Biden, because Joe Biden stepped down, right? So Joe Biden stepped away. So there has been the death of an opponent. And that may just be saying your opponent will die. Metaphorically, he will no longer be your opponent. And this is our election day of 2024. And it is gnarly as all hell, primarily because as we build toward the election, during the days that precede it, we have Mars opposite Pluto. Mars will be moving through Leo opposite Pluto in the real-time sky. So that's always every 2 years, a very difficult story. And we're going to see that very difficult story yet again during this election this time, which can be terrorist events, riots, catastrophic difficulty with violence. It's not a good time to have an election, to see Mars and Pluto in opposition. Pluto will be in Capricorn, and Mars will be at the tail end of Cancer in the run-up month before the election. And just as the election day approaches, Mars moves into Leo, which is to say into Donald Trump's natal first house, but still in a degree-based opposition to Pluto. So you could go with this combination here of Apollo transiting his south node in the bottom of the sky, Apollo on the south node, and Hecate, the triple thresholds goddess, in the real-time sky on election day, will go over Donald Trump's Chiron, wounded Jupiter leader. So you could go a news story, Mercury's, Mercury news events happen in the 3rd house. It's the house of media and newspapers and Broadcast stations, news about a wounded leader at a lot with a loss and crossroads energy. This is like a Lenormand tarot spread. Wounded leader, lost crossroads. That's the energy that Donald Trump is encountering during the election day. Retrograde Cupido and Jupiter are transiting over Trump's North Node and his sun. Again, it's retrogradation. Jupiter retrograde is going to be true as a problem for Kamala Harris and Trump, because Jupiter is retrograding up to the edge of both of their placements, up to the edge of the sun of Donald Trump and up to the edge of the ascendant in Gemini of Kamala Harris, and then backing off. We call that refrainment. And when Jupiter refrains from touching the sun of Trump, his soul's purpose, his leadership, or the ascendant, the identity of Kamala, it suggests that neither are coronated, neither will triumph to win the seat. Why? What will happen in the world that could pull us off this election happening in a timely manner? That's why I really wonder. America is transiting the seventh house of the opponents conjunct Ceres, the Grim Reaperess, in Donald Trump's chart. That's Donald Trump's Reaper in his house of opponents, with asteroid America on his ascendant natally now being embedded in the reaping, harvesting energy in the house of significant others like adversaries or opponents. Yet again, it's just a darker energy that's going on in the sky for Donald Trump, and he's representative of what we're all going to be going through. If I was throwing Kamala's chart in here, because she's a Gemini rising, right, I'd be making stories about why does she have Pluto transiting backwards through her house of death. Both of them have difficult skies on the election day. So my thoughts are looking at the idea of Cupido and looking at the idea of America and Apollo asteroids in his natal chart that are prominent. It might mean that a leader from the past, by the way, mixed bag Jupiter Cupido, will inspire passion. Well, Trump's a leader from the past, right? But it may be some other leader from the past. I don't know. Is it Kamala, or does Trump somehow not make it to the finish line? Does something happen to his health, for example? I don't know. This is one of the most complicated and daunting election years. And the astrology of the asteroids gives us a sense of problems, because with Apollo on the wounded leader Chiron Jupiter of Donald Trump's natal chart, when Apollo for him is his ticket to success, it's not good. Something's going on here, something challenging. A woman running for this slide was created, by the way, almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And I said, is a woman running for president? Because Venus is on Cupido in the first house of the United States. Sagittarius is the United States natal sky first house. Sagittarius, the archer, and that energy in the real-time sky. If you look at the fifth house of the chart in the slide, if you look down, you'll see Venus at 22 degrees on Cupido and the moon. But just archetypally, it can be passion, Cupido passion, from Donald Trump's reference point about a woman. Now he's not a woman. So this may be about some other female energy that is in engagement in an opposition to Donald Trump's son leadership. Who would that woman be? Well, it can be Kamala, right? She's already in position now by the Democrats to be the de facto incumbent next candidate for the election, because she's already grounded up enough delegate votes, actually. So there's that story too. Now, I'm just going to say, because we'll take questions in a minute, I want to get through this. I can't get out of the slideshow, so it's going to be an interesting process to try to get out. Asteroid hunting for relationships. If you want to look at your own life this way or world events this way, try to find the names of people in your life. Say you're going to apply for a job and the boss is like Bob Smith. Look for Bob and look for Smith in your natal chart, of course, but in the transiting sky, in the solar return sky. And if Bob and Smith are like conjunct Jupiter on the midheaven, you're like, I'm going to get this job, or this job is going to be a good one. I get it. I'm going to love it. So you can use name asteroids for prediction as a way to really see what's going on in the story of your life and in our collective life as well. So I call this the curious case of Joe Biden, Ivanka Trump, and Melania Trump because of what was going on. This is a retrospective look for Donald Trump in the past regarding these people. So BIDA, BIDA is an asteroid short for Biden. And there's another one, Bidleman. I use both of those, Bidleman and BIDA asteroids to delineate things to do with Joe Biden in the world, and especially regarding Trump and Biden, a nemesis of each other. So Biden is with the asteroid Nemesis, right? Nemesis is cosmic justice. So in Donald Trump's natal chart, Joe Biden will be his nemesis, his undoing, his karmic cosmic justice. Well, of course, I mean, Biden won the election and he lost it. So that's always going to be a narrative. Why is Melania also embedded in this mess? You know, his wife. Ivanka, by the way, we'll get to that. Ivanka, which is his daughter, which he professes great appreciation for. Ivanka sits with Pluto in Trump's first house. Ivanka. There's a prenatal condition here. Anything above the ascendant, you've had past lives with that person. So they've had past lives together. She's the apple of his eye, but Pluto can also be a planet for sexual misconduct, impropriety, you know, that kind of thing, incest, rape. And Pluto was criticized for his inappropriate comments about his own daughter. I've said that if Ivanka weren't my daughter, I'd be dating her. I think he's just a goof. I just think he's an absolute, like, grade 8. Some part of him is a grade 8 kid. I just think he's a goof. But that made scandalous headlines, you know, during the last election, the first election. This Ivanka Pluto trines his moon in the 5th house. You can't see the moon, but reminding you his moon is in his 5th house of sexuality and romance. And Ivanka Pluto is in a trine to the moon in his 5th house of romance and also salaciousness. And the 5th house is his house of children. So he's got a code with Ivanka for all this, like, scuttlebutt that maybe he's got some inappropriate connection to his daughter. I actually don't think so, personally, but it looks like that in the sky. Like, can be misconstrued or properly construed. If Donald Trump is a narcissist, and he may or may not be, but some people think he is, and narcissists like pretty toys and prize objects, right? And he's got a beautiful daughter who's very smart, and it looks good on him. And that's part of maybe how it gets misconstrued. She's so great, I'd date her, I'd marry her, you know, because you want to have the best of the best. It's good enough for me, you know, she's amazing. Such reminding you that. I don't want to ever imply that Donald Trump has molested his daughter. That's not what I'm saying. 2020 solar return election day, transits back in history, the curious case of, you know, Ivanka and Melania. Transiting Biden is sitting. Now, if I was trying to predict the election of 2022, the point would be I would put asteroid Bida and Bidelman into the chart of Donald Trump during the time of the election and try to figure out what the fuck was going on. This is the election chart itself in 2020. You know, reminding you that this is like, you know, it's a critical story. So what is Ivanka Bida doing in the 7th house of adversaries and opponents energetically, as this was the transiting sky at the time of the election? So this energy is like, why is Ivanka in the narrative? That's what I'm trying to ask, with Pluto in the solar return. Oh, it's a solar return chart. Yeah, it's Trump's solar return chart that year. His daughter is not an adversary. His daughter Ivanka is not an opponent. Biden is, and Biden is sitting with Jupiter, so he's likely to win relative to Donald Trump's ascendant. Biden, Jupiter, winner, king. You know, opponent has strength. But his daughter is his best friend, basically. So, but that's not what happened, right? So Pluto can be the death of his daughter, death of the relationship with his daughter, and his daughter is an enemy for him. What does it really mean? The betrayal of Ivanka. They had a bit of a kerfuffle. She formally dumped her dad. Okay. She got really, after the Stop the Steal and all of that stuff happened, she basically showed up as a disagreeing daughter and pulled away from him for the first time ever and disagreed with her father publicly. So he would have felt that was like she became the enemy or she would betrayed him. I don't know how their relationship is now. I'm sure that they turns on daddy. Ivanka turns on daddy. Okay, so that's exactly what it was predicting. Somehow the daughter would become the enemy in his mind based on that chart, solar return chart, with the placement of the planets during the actual election. So having Ivanka transit his solar return 7th house of opponents on the day of the election was somehow she would be turning into the enemy. Here's Kamala Harris on election day. Alrighty. So asteroid truth is in Kamala Harris's 7th house. I put truth there, and I thought I might go back and look at the asteroid truth when it comes to matters to do with the Stop the Steal campaign, right? If anyone can find an asteroid for thievery, I would look at it for that devil's in the details lens as well. Asteroid truth is in her 7th house, conjuncting Mercury. Now, this asteroid truth means what it sounds like. What is true? That's all it means. So we want to know what is true when we see the asteroid. The asteroid will display the truth. That's basically all I'm saying. So we want to see asteroid truth in the sky, and this is her natal sky. This is her Sagittarius 7th house. She's born to receive or know truth through other people, your marriage partner, your running mate, the others of her life. She's not walking around with truth in her, like, let me tell the truth. It's out there. Truth is outside of her. It's with other people. This is her adversaries and her opponents. That's the house of it. You're running for election. Anything to do with your natal planets in the 7th qualify you to see how your opponents look, except for the asteroid Bida. And the reason we're not making Biden an opponent, because it's the house of marriage, it's the house of mating, it's the house of running mating. So what is his running mate, or was his running mate, right, in the last election. So someone named Bida could be a mate or a running mate for her. This is a house of opponents, yes, squaring her 2nd degree midheaven. You can't see the midheaven, it's cut off, but it's at 2 degrees in the 10th house, squaring her midheaven. All right. And transiting Saturn is over her natal Chiron. Yeah, I think I cut that off, or I don't, did I? I can't see it because I can't get to the slideshow, and I've got a bar, annotation bar crossing over the top of the chart. But anyway, asteroid Salacia for scandals is in her 8th house natally. She's born to have secret scandals emerge from hidden factors and secrets in her life. 8th house scandals are anything, money scandals, sex scandals, sex secrets, money secrets, right? She's coded for a scandal in this lifetime. She won't avoid a scandal. Some point, a scandal will hit her. Who knows? Could be when she's a little old lady. But with Ceres, the Grim Reaperess, crossing her scandal asteroid on the election day, that's auspicious or inauspicious? No, it's inauspicious. The harvesting, reaping, scything of a scandal may occur as Kamala approaches election day. That's all it could be. So yeah, what secrets could come out? Asteroid Bidel, Bidel, is another Biden asteroid, is sitting on asteroid Angel in her 9th house of heaven, where Angel sits at 6 degrees. I actually wondered if Biden will be in heaven when I saw this. I'm like, maybe Biden's not in corporeal form, and he's trying to be a guardian angel from the other side, just making it up, because it'll be interesting to see why Bidel is on Angel in her chart on the day of the election and in the build up to the election in the week, couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks before. And that she was born with the asteroid Bida, another Bida, of course, moniker, in her house of running mates and partners with Juno. Juno is the king and queen of Mount Olympus, the marriage goddess. So yeah, she was always going to partner up with a Bida character in some way in life. Turned out to be, it was as vice president of the United States of America. So some of this could have been done, like an astrologer might have looked at Kamala during the election when she tried to run for president and say, well, look at Joe's running for president too, but he falls in the house of opponents, and he was her opponent for the election. But also he's with Juno. Maybe he'll win and you'll be his running mate. When Kamala was running for election, she had an amazing chart for success, especially I said, because of her distribution through the bounds, I thought she might win, but she got 2nd place, and that's good enough, right? She got to be the VP. Solar arcs and your asteroids. Okay, let's just simplify solar arcs. If you don't want to run solar arcs on any software, which is astro.com or AstroSeek, you can just go, my sun is at 1 degree of Leo when I was born, and it was in my 1st house. And you just start moving that sun a degree a year for every age you are. So I'm 60 years old. If I had my sun in Leo, I'm 62, but say I'm 60. If I had my sun in Leo at 1 degree of Leo in my 1st house at birth, and I move it forward 60 degrees, it will be at 1 degree, 2 signs over. It will be out of Leo, traveled through Leo, and then it moved the next sign and traveled through Virgo, and then it moved to the next sign and began to travel through Libra. So I would say I have a 1 degree Libra sun. You don't need software for solar arcs. You can just plot your planets are roughly a degree a year. Where it kind of falls apart in solar arcs is the older you get, you lose some of this, the perfection of that system that's manual, right? It may be more like my sun would be at 2 degrees if I was looking at the software of Libra, not 1 degree. But the gist is there. So simplify your life sometimes and just take your chart and move the planets around a degree, a notch every year of your age, and you'll get a knowledge of where your solar arc progressed planets are. Every planet moves a degree a year. Simplify your life if you want. So, but you can use astro.com. That's a hyperlink in the PDF. You can go there. You can start, casting your solar arc chart as a standalone or as a bi-wheel even over your natal chart at astro.com. That's what it looks like when you go to the back end. You see how I clicked on chart type, natal and solar arc direction. That will bi-wheel it. Your natal chart's in the middle and your progressed solar arcs are on the outside wheel. Okay, and it's just everything goes ahead a degree a year, and it's an amazing system, but you have to recognize no one's living 360 years, right? 360 degrees is 360 years. So these placements, I call them God's clock because they are literally the things you're coded to experience in your lifetime that are once in a lifetime. And that's why it's so important, because these are the big picture stories, not the little picture stories. Remember how I told you I had Atlantis at 21 degrees of Aries when I was born, conjunct Athena and pretty close to my sun. So when I was born, I will be able to say Atlantis plays a critical role in my life. It's in a stellium. It's near my sun. I wonder what it's doing by solar arc progression. That's fun to look at. That's another way to track your key natal asteroids and ask, what the heck are they doing? So 60 years later, this is now traveling through my house of romantic love. When I did the slideshow, it was at 21 degrees. That's Atlanta in that big oval at 21 degrees of the sign of Gemini at the time I made the slideshow 18 months ago. It's a once in a lifetime Atlantis sextile Atlantis. Why? Because when I was born, Atlantis is at 21 degrees of the sign of Aries. And now Atlantis is in 2023 was at 21 degrees of the sign of Gemini. I'm having an Atlantis sextile Atlantis story. That's what it means for me. What could it be about that it's happening from the house of romantic love? Well, what about that guy who's sending me the Atlantis book? What about that guy who is, in my life right now, who we both know we were in Atlantis together? Literally, he's here, right? It's the beginning of a romance from an Atlantean perspective, basically. Let's call it that. Sextiles are the nature of Venus, and they always bring Venusian things. Just so you know, Mars is the squares are the nature of Mars. Trines are the nature of Jupiter. So a sextile wants to bring you fun things: love, sex, play, money. Venusian theme. So that's the theme of sextiles in their essence, by the way. Because I don't like when people say in modern astrology a sextile is a weak trine. That's totally not true. It is a Jupiter nature is a trine. Opportunity, expansion, growth, goodness, and wisdom. Sextiles are love, fun, pleasure, play, friendship, money, Venus. Okay, it's simple. All right. And then asteroid Sulis for soul. If you want to find soulmate, soul stuff, go find asteroid Sulis, Soulis, for a moniker for soul or anything to do with the word soul. Was sitting with Atlantis in my 3rd house. Okay, at the time of this slide, and is now, when I was born, yes, asteroid Sulis, okay, was sitting with Atlantis in my 3rd house. So I have asteroid Sulis on Atlantis in my 3rd house when I was born, with my sun and moon and all my planets, stellium, Mercury. And then it tracks forward, asteroid Sulis. It's sitting, tracking with Atlantis. It's tick-tocking along behind Atlantis and my sun and everything else in tick-tock fashion. Funny enough, sitting on fixed star Aldebaran, but also on the Vestal flame of sacred devotion when this relationship began in early 2023. And it's an interesting thing because that relationship's still here. We cohabitate together. My IC is sitting at 8 degrees, 9 degrees of Gemini. So it's about home-based living, cohabitation, long-term soulmate relationship. So you might want to start looking for names of people you know that you're dating, names of people in your chart that are important to you, and watch where they track. Say your child is called, you have a kid, you named them Harmony. I just like that name. Harmony. You named your daughter Harmony. Watch where asteroid Harmony goes, if you can find that asteroid, or something close like Harmon, and say Harmony's transiting Jupiter in your chart. Good things are happening for your child. Maybe pregnancy, fertility, expansion, growth, abundance. It doesn't matter that it's your Jupiter. The asteroid is the moniker of your child, and it's now transiting a natal planet in your chart that looks very positive. It also could mean prosperity with and for your child connected to you. In other words, use your name asteroids from the natal chart that are critical to you, children, husbands, fathers, mothers, and track them in progressed solar arc time, especially for the big stories, transits for the short moving stories, the little stories. Solar arc stories are big epic events in God's clock that are once in a lifetime. Transits can happen over and over again. So the solar arc is sort of like a big picture destiny view for your sky. And so when you track those asteroids through the big picture destiny stories, you get the big picture destiny stories, right? You can see a year ago that asteroid Pythia is transiting over, well, has passed Venus, right? Is over Venus and is now past Venus in my sky. But it would say, like in 2023, that indicates approximately in 2020, asteroid Pythia was over my Venus. What could it mean that the Oracle of Delphi is with Venus in my fourth house 4 years ago? Well, I began my astrology business in earnest, right? I began to be an oracular divinatory force from a home-based real estate, land and property place in my life. I started my channel, started doing these things, and I'd be a home-based or oracular diviner energy. And I might be prosperous because it's Venus in Taurus. That's what you could say. And then poor Queen Elizabeth, bless her soul, when she died, Requiem was progressed in solar arc time, once in a lifetime, first in a lifetime, had progressed forward in time. And it was with her midheaven and with Saturn when she was born, but now she lived to an old age. So she got to see Requiem move from her 11th house down, all the way down to her second house. That's how long she lived. And that asteroid was sitting in the sky when she died with Saturn, because Saturn and Requiem are together in her chart. So they're moving a degree a year together, that had progressed all the way down to the bottom of her sky, her second house, in conjunction to Juno, the marriage goddess. Her husband, Philip, had passed 18 months earlier. And I thought that meant she really just missed him. I think she wanted to follow his lead. And a Requiem, the death asteroid, the funeral asteroid, crossing over the archetypal energy of husband or mate or partner or marriage. So I thought that was kind of sweet, actually. 73 years of marriage, right? Of course, she's going to miss the shit out of him. And I think her leave taking had to do with that, her soul's leave taking. Your best asteroid research for fun, alexasteroidastrology.com. Go category, this link is hyperlink, asteroid astrology research is an amazing resource. I love Alex, I can't remember his last name, the guy who got me turned on by asteroids. His website is a plethora of knowledge and wisdom. I would also suggest you do anything to do with Demetra George. She has a goddess report. You can cast a chart to get a smattering for fun of highlights of the asteroids in your chart and where they fall, and her own written delineation of what it means for you. I haven't done it for myself, but it might be just a fun treat for yourself to see how she interprets some of the asteroid goddesses in your chart. She only is working with the feminine goddesses. She's all about the feminine wisdom of, especially the big four, Vesta, Juno, Ceres, and Juno, Ceres, Vesta, and Athena. So there's that asteroid asset as well. All right, so a software asteroid review link here gives you options for different software packages that you can use that include asteroids. Unfortunately, the ones I've been finding are only for non-Mac. So if you really become an asteroid junkie beyond the beyond, you're going to have to get a separate computer that doesn't have Mac operating systems already. But this link will take you to that as well. And I'll be sending you a copy of the slideshow. But it's exceptionalpurpose.com/asteroids-software. And that review is quite a handy tool because then you can look at options for using asteroids. There's one software that spatters thousands of asteroids into your chart. It makes it look like a mess. But what a friend of mine, Gary Caton, has the asteroid stargazer on his ascendant. He's famous for his photos of the skies. And the only way you could find that was to use the software that splatters 1,000 asteroids across your sky. It's the kind of thing, if you really want to go deep, you'll have to, dive into. Now it let me get out of the slideshow. Like after all that time, I was stuck in the slideshow mode. All right. So now I'm going to get out of here and I'm just going to stop the share and we're going to come in. Thanks, Kimberly, for helping out. So there's a lot of depth with asteroids that I think are overlooked in modern astrology or contemporary astrology these days. And I find that adding the asteroids isn't just a delightful element of wonder and awe, but it's actually very useful. And you can make predictive things with it. You can use it proactively. Again, dating someone, you find their name. A boss is going to hire you. The company has a name. Find the asteroids that are similar in your natal chart, in your solar return, in your solar arcs. It'll help you go into the interview with confidence if you realize the company called Richness. There's an asteroid called Riches, and the asteroid's on your midheaven, and you're born to work for that company. That's the goodness of the asteroids. All right, so let's take questions. You can put your hand up if you want to have a thought, a question about the story of asteroids. And if you put your hand up, you can mic up. So does anyone have some thoughts or questions they'd like to share in the actual talking part of the story? Okay, Carrie, go ahead.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You're so brilliant. Like it's unbelievable. And I love listening to your YouTube channel. And today was like no exception in terms of the way that you tell a story and your research. And it's just amazing. Oh my God, now I forgot my question. I can't believe it. Well, I guess you know what it was. So you were talking about like if you were doing a manual solar arc progression and it's 1 year, 1 degree per year that you've lived. Is that the same for the asteroids? I think you mentioned that. So I was just curious.
Yes, your natal asteroids, your natal midheaven, your natal planets will progress a year, every degree. And now where it falls apart is about after the age of 40. Then it begins to sort of lose its momentum that way because it's almost a degree a year. So after the age of 40, you're going to find that it's not quite accurate, but it's a small differential. Maybe it's off by a degree. That's all. So you can just pinpoint like this with your finger in your chart. Oh my God, Pythia of the Oracle of Delphi for me now is at 5 degrees of Taurus in my 4th house. Maybe it's really at 6 if I was using software, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Great question. I just want to say, Vera asked me the name of the asteroid for Soul. Soulless, Soulis. So you can use it for soulmate, matters to do with soul. Another asteroid that is the same as the word soul is Psyche. Psyche, because the word psyche means soul. So you can look at Psyche, but Psyche will also draw you into the energy of Psyche and Eros and the mythic love story of the god of love and the mortal woman. So anytime you're looking at Psyche, you're going to go into stories to do with love as well. Soul and love, I'd say. I see your question, Amanda. Give me a sec. I'm just going to check out this. A question in the chat. How do you interpret your solar arc sun versus progressed sun? Well, solar arc sun is a progressed sun, and there's no difference, okay? Actually, when you're using secondary progressions, the sun is progressing a degree a year, as it is in solar arc progressions. The only thing I ever use secondary progressions for is the moon, to see where the moon is in secondary progressions. Otherwise, I never use secondary progressions. I use the ancient solar arc progressions instead, which is 1 degree a year. Because in secondary progressions, your Neptune never goes anywhere. All of your life is basically where it started. So secondary progressions are moving planets on a ratio of speed. I don't find secondary progressions all that accurate or useful unless I'm just looking at the moon, because the moon in secondary progressions every 2.5 years moves through a different part of the sky, and I find that useful. Different. Where's my secondary progressed moon? Which house is it in? Because it's going to be about lunar themes in that area of my sky. Let me just see else. Any questions in the chat before I just go to thing? The South Node means loss, past lives, things to do with your spiritual awareness, letting go, letting God, tuning into the deeper meaning of life. That's what that means. So Amanda has the asteroid Lori in her 12th house in her natal chart next year. She's in her 11th house conjunct Venus. Love this. Yeah. So maybe Amanda and a Lori person becomes really prominent, or you already have a Lori person in your life and they're going to be playing a different role there. A planetary placement, husband, wife, spouse in the 12th house, or just above the ascendant, between the ascendant and the 12th, can indicate a past life connection with that person. We have past life connections with everyone, but a past life connection with an unfinished business, need to reconnect in this life. I'm just checking the chat. Oh, season, off you go, no problem. She's probably already gone. Could it mean a third person option will appear that we don't see yet, or no election? Oh, yeah, that's it. I don't know. It could be a delay in the election. It could be things could be a third person option. I mean, if Trump doesn't make it for some reason, then I don't know if that means Vance steps in. If someone tries yet again to assassinate Trump, the deep state assassination attempt goes into mode 2. Oh no, he had a heart attack. Okay, yeah, sure. Then I guess Vance would take over and we'd have a new person in charge. I don't know. I don't know what the law would be about running mates and death of candidacy before the election. There could be a global event. My take on the election in the fall is there may be some difficult US-based global circumstances that call the election into a delay mode, like a crisis of some sort. But I can't imagine what it is. Like, I really can't yet, other than like bird flu taking over from the cows in Texas, because X marks the spot for 2 eclipses. And there's a HN15 bird flu that's in the cattle, but it hasn't escaped human. It hasn't gone to human transmission. But if it does, the bird flus are highly pathological. I don't want to scare anybody, but I can only try to imagine what could forestall or delay an election, that or a massive terrorist event that requires, everybody just buckle up, and like a 9/11 event. What else is in here? Should you use current city or birth city for your solar return? Oh gosh, I always use your birth city, the ancient tradition. I'm always trying to remind people, you'd use your natal birth city or town because that's your fundamental chart and it doesn't ever change. And the solar return reflects God's winding gears, right? From the place, to time, latitude of birth. You would only use I live in Vancouver now, not born in my small town in Ontario, as sort of a secondary flavor, like icing on the cake or another layer of meaning, but the fundamental layer is cast all solar return charts for your birthplace. Asteroids for health and sickness. Well, Monique, when I send this to you guys, I'm going to send you the link to the basic asteroids course I taught. And in that, I give you about a 3-page PDF listing all the asteroids that I thought were useful. Like, there's lots and lots of asteroids, right? So off the chart, health would be Hygeia. Health could be Panacea, the remedy that cures everything. Panacea, Hygeia. Chiron involves health. Yeah, and in the asteroid list, there's a lot of asteroids. I go health asteroids, death asteroids, and I list a bunch of asteroids and their numbers that you can just plunk into astro.com. So when I send you this, I will send you guys the link to the intro course, which is free, that allows you to get the PDF that goes with the introduction. Seizures, I have no idea, Sabrina, but look to see if the word seize is there, right? CEI, SEI, maybe there's the word seize, or seize the day, carpe diem. Maybe somebody named an asteroid carpe diem or whatever, and maybe that would be good enough for seizure, really. Yeah. So that's where you go asteroid hunting at astro.com. They have a list of thousands of asteroids. You can scroll alphabetically through to find the asteroid that you're trying to get the sound-alike for. And a lot of people say sound-alikes don't count. They do. They're perfectly useful. Beidelman and Bida. I've watched it over and over again, and they're accurate reflections of what goes on in Biden's world. Okay, so we have some real questions here. Amanda and then Vera. Amanda, what's your question?
It's not a question. It's just something that astrology has brought, and you've sort of rounded off the answer. I started astrology, and then someone mentioned about the daemon or the demons. And as a child, I had a being with me that would say no or yes to things, would guide me to be quiet, and I didn't know what that was, but I thought, and if I ever did the opposite, I'd get in big trouble with the grown-ups. So
Wow,
I
that
listened to the voice, and he helped me through lots of tricky times. And then astrology mentioned about the daemons.
mhm. The daemons are your guiding spirits.
And he was really loud. And then around puberty, he went quite quiet, and I got quite upset. And then he came back really loud again. And I've done a lot of that work. So then astrology brought it, and it sort of brought it into reality. It was like, oh, so you can actually share that with the world. You can see it in astrology. Now, you said that the daemons were in the asteroid belt. So I said to my guy, so where are you? And he said, Abyss. So I've just Googled it just now, Abyss. And it's in my third house of communication, and it's near my Chiron. And I was teased so much as a kid, because I used to say things like, oh, when is your baby coming? And people used to laugh at me because somebody was quite big, and they'd say, I'm not pregnant. And then they'd find out a month later they were pregnant, and they go, that child's weird.
That's interesting. That's interesting. So you spell that, you mean like abyss, Abyss? Okay,
Yeah.
I want to address that. It's a beautiful point, because when the angels fell from heaven, they were cast into the abyss.
Oh, you just said it, and I've never heard of it before.
Yeah. And what is the abyss? It's the rubble of the planet Tiamat that orbits between Jupiter and Mars. You see, astrology is really, interestingly, also astronomy. And the reason that the ancients considered Jupiter the greater benefic is he's a protector for humanity. Jupiter's gravitational pull is what keeps the asteroid belt from falling towards the sun and therefore into the Earth's atmosphere. Without Jupiter, the space rubble that's the asteroid belt or the abyss would fall into the sun by gravitational pull and would hit Earth. So astronomy and astrology are one and the same. Now, the abyss is curious, because I think of the asteroid belt as the angels and the demons on your shoulder. It's not, the abyss isn't just, and of course, in ancient lore, the war in heaven caused the fallen angels that fought against the kingdom of God or whatever to fall into the abyss. So what we have is a war in heaven, meaning that so there's ancient Egyptian and Sumerian tablets, Sumerian especially, that talk about the destruction of a planet in our solar system. There's a war in heaven. It literally may have been a war between celestial non-terrestrial human beings that ended up with the destruction of a planet, Tiamat. Rather than just a myth, it's an actual astronomical legend of something that happened in our solar system. Isn't that cool?
Wow, that is so cool.
Yes. All at the same time, what trips me up about astrology, and astronomy all of the time is, even while I can entertain astrology's lore to be astronomical legend passed down verbally, it's true still that the planet Jupiter, when it does something in the sky, brings you luck, prosperity, expansion, and growth, as well as it keeps asteroids from falling into the sun and hitting Earth. It's not,
Wow.
It's a celestial truth to do with astronomy, and it's an archetypal truth to do with the way we interact with reality, which is, of course, a matrix.
And the truth always comes through when I'm with, I tend to open up bigger when I'm near psychic people, and when I'm on a pathway that is going towards, so that's why I opened up. I thought, great, okay, let's see. Okay, so this works, this asteroid thing.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I love that you're like seasoned too. She's very curious. Let me figure out where, after your guide tells you abyss, let's figure out where abyss sits. Now you need to look at solar arc abyss. You need to look at your natal solar returns and stuff. You got to find out what's abyss doing every year in your life.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Now, you asked where he was from. You got to get the daemon's name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't thought of that. Yeah.
I know. You should say, I'm waiting. Give me a sign. Show me a dream. Give me a synchronicity. Tell me your name, and like the next thing you know, like the name Philip shows up 3 times in a row, and the next day, like, find his name, because your daemon will have a name.
Okay,
If you ask him to show your name, he'll give you a name.
Okay, thank you. Will do.
Yeah. What a delightful conversation. Thank you. Vera, what's going on up there in the top corner?
I just wanted to share as well, kind of validating what you're saying about asteroids. My husband's name is on my natal Mercury. And isn't that like the representation of your first spouse or first serious relationship?
Oh, I never heard that from Mercury, but Mercury has got its natural joy in the first house. So maybe that's opposite the marriage house. So that could be how did you track Mercury as a delineation of your first relationship?
I swear when I had a reading with you, we talked about that
Oh,
Mercury
yeah, she's right.
represents.
She's right. That's just for you. So I did a
Oh,
technique for you from ancient India to find first spouse, second spouse, third spouse, that kind of thing, right? And
yes.
based on your chart, Mercury is the planet that represents your first big long-term committed love. Yes, that's your chart.
Yes. So his name is on it.
Oh, that's perfect. Oh my God, how amazing. Doesn't that blow you away?
Yes.
Me too. Me too. My husband, with whom I had children, his name is Paul Shaw, and I found an asteroid called Paul Shaw. I mean, you're making this up, or Shaw Paul, or whatever. And it was like literally in a placement that like made total sense, like in the house of children on my, IC or something. Can't remember now because I mean, I first got down the the whole of the asteroid rabbit hole in 2019. I started crazy ass finding the name of every lover or husband or people, romantic partner ever to see what the fuck that was about.
Can I ask another question? Let's say if you're naming a child, like I'm pregnant, I want to name a child. What would you like? Let's say you have names and you plug them in. What relationship would you want to look for? Is it something to you in your natal chart, or how can you like maybe pick a name that would be beneficial?
Now I'm finding that to be interesting because I've never thought about that in the sense that you could be thwarting destiny. You know what I'm saying? Like, I named my children by dreaming their names at 5 months pregnant for each of them, and they weren't even on my list. So you've got an upper hand here, right? I mean, obviously having the name asteroid in a trine relationship to your ascendant. So the name asteroid falls in your 5th house or your 9th house, invites a loving and strong connection to that child, right? You could just be as simple as that. So if you had a short list of 5 names, smatter them in your chart and see if they fall in houses 5 or 9, because that obviously is also their auspicious houses or dharma houses.
Laura, you can't make this up. You're just so on it because there is like 2 names that were in between, and the one that we have been thinking about for a long time is in the 9th house.
That's a beautiful placement. That's a gorgeous placement for a child. Yes. So yeah, it's simple like that. I wouldn't overthink it. I wouldn't spend 7 months finding the asteroid that conjuncts your Venus. But now you had a great name like Julian, and you have to name the kid like Jasper, and you're like, fuck, Jasper's on my Venus, but it's a stupid name, right?
Well, this name would be actually in the same house as Venus, so maybe this is the right name.
Co-present with Venus. And what sign is Venus in?
Taurus.
Beautiful. Co-present with Venus and Taurus in the 5th house. It also would portend that child will bring you many grandchildren, because it is the house of grandchildren. What's the name?
The name is Celeste.
Oh, I love it. Go for it.
I know I should.
Like at the end of the day, like let the signs and synchronicity show you the way, let your inner guides show you which is the right name. What a great idea. Oh my God. You do a course for pregnant women and for astrology and have them learn this tool, Are you going to do astrology professionally? Because you're also very down the rabbit hole.
I don't know professionally, but I have been like using my friends as like their charts and learning things, and it's wild the things that I find.
Okay. Well, you never know. It might be a little side hobby for you, but it could also become more, and you could help women in pregnancy find the right name.
Maybe.
Oh, I got a special role. Cassie says Don Jr. had a scandal with the singer Aubrey O'Day. Did he discovered her a few years ago? She still brings him up now. Oh, Don Jr. scandal. I said Donald Trump's kids will always have scandals, right? Unfortunately. So that's just his natal code. He'll never get away from scandals about his children or scandals about him and his children. So yeah, you can look at Don Jr.'s chart, by the way, and see where Aubrey fits in his chart, what that was about, if you can find a natal chart for Don Jr. I'm sure there is one. Another way to parse the election is to look at Don Jr.'s chart, if we can get his data, or Ivanka's chart, and see how their father is doing in their chart in an election year. Like if I think Donald Trump's at risk of dying again, almost dying. Then I would look at Ivanka's chart and Don Jr.'s chart, which I was planning to do. I just haven't had time. And I was like, oh my God, the son, their father is in the house of death, or in the 12th house of health challenges and hardships, or, or, oh my God, their son, the father is conjunct Pluto in the house of death for Ivanka. Maybe her dad will die this year. You see what I mean? So you can also look for a person's story through the lens of their child's chart, because the sun is their father and the moon is their mother. And you can look at your children's charts for you as the mother or father, sun or moon, and see how you're doing. So when I did a solar return for my daughter a year or two ago, or whatever year ago, I was in the 12th house. Oh my God, I'm going to have health challenges, but it also means distance away and far off lands. And I spent 6 months away from my daughter in travel. And so, because I'm very close to her and I live in the same town. So that was all that meant. But you can always track a person through the charts of their children as well. There you go. Okay, guys, I have to roll too, because I have to go get a blowout for the wedding. All right. Thank you, everybody. This recording is coming to you with a link to the free download of the intro course, where you're going to be able to simply get a PDF that shows you the names of lots of asteroids that you can use, that I compiled as a resource for you, so that, and a link to the intro class if you haven't taken it before. And once you're down the rabbit hole, you'll never go back. You'll never go back. Thanks, Kimberly, for sidekicking with me. I appreciate you guys. I'll send the recording directly to you this after, before an hour or two from now, so you can keep this as a private file for yourself as well. And as always, your questions and thoughts and ruminations were fantastic. Have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.